Welcome to the Hiscall Technology Podcast, where we are communicating tomorrow's business needs today. From just outside Nashville, Tennessee, join Hiscall as we discuss all things telephony, data, and infrastructure related to business leaders. Here we go.
Warren Cribbins is a hard-working man that finds comfort and solace in numbers. Truth be said, he's more confident working with numbers than he is people. Warren is an officer for a community bank, and his dedication does not go unnoticed. The bank manager, Mr. Cutler, offers him a promotion, but Warren is apprehensive and does not feel up to the position. On his way out of Mr. Cutler's office, a coworker bumps into Warren and then steps on his glasses. As Warren sits in his office looking through his cracked glasses, he sees the world differently. He begins to see accidents happen before they actually occur. Warren begins to see more clearly. As he works on foreclosures, he looks through his cracked glasses and sees the unfortunate people and their desperate future, which will happen if he goes through with the foreclosures. Cribbins is called back into Mr. Cutler's office. Mr. Cutler wants Warren to offer a farmer bottom dollar for his land. Since he is so far in debt, he will take anything. After Warren puts on his glasses, he finds Cutler is being shady about the foreclosure because he stands to gain financially from a big highway to be built through the farm while the family loses their home. Warren is ultimately fired for arranging a loan for the family to keep their farm. On his way out of the bank, his coworker apologizes again for breaking his glasses, but Warren assures her not to worry about it, as he doesn't need them anymore. Here we are for another great episode of the Hiscall Technology Podcast. Gary Luffman, President and CEO of Hiscall, recorded 2 podcasts last year. The inaugural episode, released 15 January 2019, is the most downloaded episode of 2019. He also recorded another podcast announcing Hiscall's cloud. This is Chuck, and I'm pleased to have Gary back today. Gary, do you recognize the story of Mr. Cribbins?
You know, while I was listening to that, I kept thinking, that sure sounds familiar. It almost sounds like one of the Twilight Zone episodes from the 60s.
You're very good. I knew you were a big fan of Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah,
and you're absolutely right. That's what it is. That's an episode called 2020 Vision.
Oh, okay.
And it just seemed a good introduction today as we talk about vision. You know, much has been made of this year being 2020, of being a year of vision and clarity and those kind of things. Today we're going to talk about Hiscall's story, your vision to start your own business, how the business developed with new technologies and expanded to another office, and then talk about what you're looking forward to in 2020.
All right.
Sounds like a good plan?
Sounds like a plan to me.
Well, let's just jump right into it. Prior to starting Hiscall, you had a successful career in sales and service.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to start your own business?
You know, Chuck, back when I was a very young man in my 20s, I had a business, inexperienced in a lot of things, but I enjoyed doing it, but I learned so much. And of course, when the economy in the early 80s hit, the interest rates went up so high, the end result was we ended up having to go out of business. I had 16 people on payroll, and I thought, I don't ever want to do this again. All I can say is the good Lord has different plans sometimes than we have our own plans, because I thought if I ever go into business again, it won't be anything that size. And here we are now at Hiscall. We've got roughly 60 people, and we're growing.
You know, that answers something I've often wondered when you started Hiscall, if you envisioned a company that would have multiple offices and employees in multiple states.
We did not at all. When I started Hiscall with the help of my wife, Sarah, she helped me in the early days because, honestly, I couldn't afford any help. I had left AT&T, and that was one of several large companies that I'd had the opportunity, and I will say the pleasure, of working for over the years. At AT&T, it was a very good very good company. The focus was on customer service. Well, over time, unfortunately, they kind of lost that vision, if you will. It was more about the bottom line. And I've always felt like if you take care of customers, the bottom line will take care of itself. Between 94 and 95, I thought, this is just not fitting anymore for me, and I thought we got to do better than this. And I had a plan that I would set up a small company. There'd be 3 or 4 or 5 of us. We'd subcontract back to AT&T. I pondered over this for about a year. I told the general manager, I said, I really like you, but I can work with you, but I can't work for you anymore. This is what I'd like to do, be the best contractor you've ever seen. So what our plan was is we were going to be a subcontractor to AT&T. So I went back into sales for another company doing a whole different type of business. That allowed me to be able to put the paperwork in and come back as a service provider. But by the time that all that had happened, it had already changed to Lucent Technologies. So here we go down this road, and the paperwork came back as a Lucent authorized service provider. I thought, okay. And did that for a number of years and supplied services, programming, some installation and such. And I would get people to help me when I needed help, but that was my night and weekend job until 2000. That's when we went full-time. And it was also at that time Sarah said, now look, my wife, she said, you've got to get some help. I can't keep helping you on this. And so we hired our first person in April. And then in July, I hired 2 more people. That's Bobby and Lucas, who are still here with us. And then we grew, and by the end of that year, the name had changed again. There was a lady that was working that I also had the pleasure of working with years ago that Kathy Wood. She decided she wanted to leave and told me in January, and I said, well, great, come on over here. I'll apply for a dealership, even though I didn't plan on Hiscall selling products at that time. I said, when you want to come? She said, October. And I paused, and I said, Kathy, this is January. She said, I don't feel like it's right to leave right now for some reason. Don't know why. I feel like the good Lord is telling me wait till October. Her husband even wondered why she's waiting. I didn't know, she didn't know, and sure enough, Lucent spun off, as you well know, and it became Avaya October 1. Now, I can't make this stuff up. This is how it happened. I started applying for a dealership about a month or so prior to, set up the meetings. We got the dealership, the rights to sell Avaya equipment, and that's where we started. By the end of 2000, we had 7 of us in Hiscall, and I thought, that's enough.
By the end of 2000.
By the end of 2000. Yeah. So when I thought we might just do something for planning, programming, training, assisting, subcontracting, now we're a dealer. The same year that we went full time. And I thought, okay, we got 7 people. That's plenty. And we had started an office in Knoxville with 1 person up there. I thought this is good. The next year, I believe we had 12. All right, I thought this is enough. The next year we had 20 some odd. I thought, okay, this is enough. And every year as we progress. So today, goodness, I'm very pleased and proud to say that we have the staff that we've got, and we're growing. Our facility in Dixon, outside of Nashville, as you know, is over 30,000 square foot in a building that we moved into in 2004. We've got a nice location in Knoxville, a whole crew up there now of several people. So I feel like I'm one of the most blessed men on the planet. Our goal is, as you well know, is to provide that service still. After all these years, that is what I feel is missing. The technology, everybody knows you can go online, you can find it, buy it, but who's going to be there to help you with it, to put something in, make it work right, or be there, at 2 o'clock in the morning if it breaks and you got something really happening going, really important going on, and you need that quick service. So that's still what we're about. It's not the the brands or the products, even though we're very blessed to represent a lot of really good products, it's going to be the people here, the service that we provide. That's still our number one focus.
I know in hearing you talk about your career, you've always had a passion for service. You know, the companies you worked for kind of led you into sales, and all the while you had this desire to really be helping customers and providing service. That passion for service carries over into the company that you've created. Gary, as you were talking about Hiscall being different and providing service, it reminds me of the announcement we did on the podcast last year in the Hiscall Cloud. You chose to go that path to develop our own.
Correct.
Because you were not able to serve the customers in a way that you wanted to.
That's correct.
With using other vendors.
That's correct. We chose our platform and we built our architecture here to support it. Our system, it is a product that is very well tried and proven, but we have got redundancy and redundancy behind the redundancy. So in other words, if our cloud system, see a lot of cloud providers, when you go to tell them, well, where's your product? They either say, I don't know, or it doesn't matter, or whatever. Well, it does matter to me. It does matter to me. Where is the engine that's going to supply the communications? I don't mind telling anybody at all. It is right here in Hiscall in a very, very tightly secured area. We have redundancy here, but we've also got a system in Knoxville that backs that up. So it's like a third layer, if you will. The likelihood of our system going down is extremely low. I'm just saying that we have that ultra redundancy in place. And the difference between Hiscall's cloud before, regardless of products, is the fact it goes back to treating people like you want to be treated. I don't want to sign a contract with anybody if the product doesn't work and then I'm stuck with it. And I think any of our listeners would feel the same way. Unfortunately, about every cloud company out there, when you sign a contract, you're in a 3-year deal or whatever. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then they've got all these long-winded exclusions and how many times they got to be out before they could get out of a contract. No. Ours is very clear. If you don't like what we do here, you can get out of that contract. But if they want cloud, we can definitely provide them what we feel is the best of breed for the cloud solutions. On our cloud service, not only can it do all the things from the voice, but we can also run video, phone to phone, conference bridging, you name it.
Well, I know you looked very hard at options in providing that as customers began to ask for it, and ultimately we landed here because you knew that you could take care of the customer in the way that you expect Hiscall to treat customers. One of my favorite things to hear you tell, we often hear people, think I'll start my own business and it'll be glamorous and all this kind of thing. But when you started, you mentioned starting with Sarah, who was a nurse, and you had another job. And one of the things I like to hear you tell about is she's driving you around to jobs at night and on the weekends, and y'all are eating Hot Pockets in the truck and stuff on the way. Yeah,
we did that so many times, and we had like Valentine's days and anniversaries, our wedding anniversaries and stuff. We can't remember now if it was, were we at a gas station eating Hot Pockets for dinner, or was it a Waffle House at like 2:30 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited and she's tired, and I said, look, we got to have to come up with a name because we're going to have to start filing some things here. And this was just our first few months of getting going in there, and she looked at me and tired, and she pointed up and said, it's going to be Hiscall if we make it. And I'm like, oh, I like that.
Right.
So that's where the name came from.
I got you. That's another story I enjoy telling. Very often you're in an elevator or an airport and wearing the Hiscall shirt, and people will see the cross on the name, on the logo, and often they'll ask, what is Hiscall? What do you do? Well, what does the name mean? So we get to tell that.
That's true, and sometimes people don't ever get it, and that's okay. We're not here to try to push our Christian beliefs on anybody, but we are trying to just quietly say, just like Luke 6:31, we're going to treat people like we want to be treated. See, to go back for the companies that I used to work for, there was a lot of good things out of multiple companies. They all had good things. These big corporations have the really good stuff. They do, but they've also, unfortunately, got some bad things because of being corporate. Well, even though Hiscall is a corporation, when we're an S Corp, I decided, when we do start this, I would like to pick up all the good stuff that I learned from all those companies, but not bring any of the bad stuff with me. Mm-hmm. And so we've tried our best to do that, try to have a caring family type of atmosphere, but still abide by corporate guidelines and rules and regulations that are imposed. So we're trying to say, let's be more flexible. Don't do things that just don't make sense. Don't take 5 steps to do something when 2's all you really need, and let's just get on and laser focus on taking care of that customer, and that's still what our mission is.
Mm-hmm. So you wanted to create a company not only that was providing excellent service, but you wanted it to be different from some other large corporations that, where people can become just kind of a number.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of the first things. Got 2 quick stories about that. First off, when I said, whenever we build our database of clientele, I do not ever want to hear an employee that works at Hiscall to ever have a customer on the phone and say, "What is your customer number, please?" No. So our systems are easy to understand, where you don't have to search by that. And also, our staff is so wonderful that they get to know people so well that anybody that regularly uses us, they know their voice and they get to know them. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, when we first started here, I was personally handwriting checks. Our CPA at that time said, "Look, I can do your checks." And I said, "That'd be great." So I gave him the information. All right. We're going along, and we're starting to get some things moving. Again, we're very small. We've got probably about 20 some odd employees at that time, and we're about a year. We're about a dozen folks, I guess, because it's about a year and a half into it. I took my first paycheck. Okay. Now, that all being said, one day somebody comes to me, it's probably been years later, and they look at my badge and say, "Why is yours number 10? Did you start with 10? I had to look at it, and it hit me all of a sudden. I said, "Oh, I can tell you, because I was the 10th person to get a paycheck."
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
The company has become one of Tennessee's largest technology product firms, recently recognized by the Business Journal. You've got employees in multiple states, fleet of vehicles, multiple offices. But you didn't grow that by continuing to rely upon one technology.
No.
As I look at the timeline on the Hiscall website, you added security department in 2008, an audio-visual department in 2009, 2010, nurse call department. So
correct.
You're expanding, adding technologies and products. How did you know, what did you see that you decided you needed to add those kind of things?
Well, a few reasons. Here's the deal. We were growing just, oh my goodness, leaps and bounds, because there was such a need at the time for providing good telephony services for businesses. And just to go back to when we went full-time in 2000 to 2007, we were growing 20% or more year after year. Sometimes it was almost double. The telephony business was still booming. We had added cable and fiber. We were a full Bixie service training center, as you know, and you had another really good podcast on that, by the way. And we formed that training center here when we moved in this building in 2004. So here we are in 2007, and it's our best year ever. We're looking at future growth and so forth. And then here comes, long story short, here comes 2008, that a lot of business owners would realize and remember. That was some people call it the crash of Wall Street. So many things changed right then. I knew then we've got to do something, because I do not want to ever lay off anybody. Unfortunately, we did have to go through that, some trimming like a lot of companies did. We had to make some changes, and I thought, okay, what can we do here? And, of course, after I prayed about it and thought about it, and I thought, well, it's obvious to me we are very talented here with a lot of wonderful folks, and we do cable and fiber infrastructures, and we know that our forte is taking care of businesses. So it was obvious to add security cameras, access control, and then right after that, audio visual. And I'd had experience in those things in some previous careers I'd had in the hospital environments. So to me, it was a perfect fit. As you noted earlier, we do some nurse call systems. So basically, it's communications in businesses. Years and years ago, 95% of our business was voice, and about 5% of it was cable and fiber for it. Today, about half of our business, and it can fluctuate from month to month, of maybe 47% to 52% of our business is voice. And the rest of it is everything else. It's the cable, the fiber, the access control, the security cameras, our managed services agreement, all sorts of everything else that we have to offer. Digital signage. Those are the businesses that are growing.
As you're talking about that, it reminds me of something that we say on every intro to the podcast is we are communicating tomorrow's business needs today.
Yep. You want to know where that slogan came from?
I do. I wanted you to tell that story.
One word, Sarah, my wife.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. We were trying a few years ago to come up with some ideas about how do we tell people what do we do. She jotted that down, and I thought, man, I like that. And if you think about it, that's still what we try to do. We try to explain to people today what they're going to need tomorrow.
You know, Gary, communicating tomorrow's business needs today requires vision.
It does.
It requires ability to see what business needs are coming. So as we look at 2020, what business needs do you see? Any new products or technologies that you're excited about for 2020 for Hiscall?
Yes. One of the number one items, I believe, is the facial recognition. And that has come a long way since that first podcast. So it's only been 1 year. And matter of fact, this week, 3 of the guys and myself went out to Texas, outside of Dallas, to the NEC North American headquarters, and we saw their newest of technologies to roll into. One thing we did mention is their 2 products that we've got at our front desk that people come in and recognize. There's one product called Front Desk Assistant, and that's where somebody can come up. I believe we mentioned this before, where they can look at a tablet, register themselves. It takes a picture, and then it is part of our database. That database goes into facial recognition, which is another application. And now, every time this person comes in, the screen recognizes them and says, "Welcome to Hiscall." That was the first step. Now, the NEC developers have come out with all these offerings that are just fantastic. We are now implementing some of those things. There's something like 60 different adapters to do all sorts of applications and stuff. And we spent the whole day out in Texas, and we only saw about 10 to 12 maybe. There's all these things it can do, help you in your business, whether it be retail, whether it be in airports, whether it be in police departments, fire departments, banks, utility companies, hospitals, nursing homes, just all kinds of applications. Example, some small applications that could be used in anybody's business. Employees look at a door, and we're going to have that implemented here probably within the month. They'll come in, anybody in our database that we want to come through our door, because we have security here. Those folks that come regularly, like some of our vendors, our regular guests, some local folks here that are having meetings in our building or something, this will allow them just come right on in, because they're safe, they're good, we know who they are, and they can go right to the front desk assistant, log in and put in who they're here to see, and immediately an email is generated to that person they're here to see, and it pops up, and they come up and greet their guests. and you don't have to have somebody at the front desk. Now, that is one of the neatest things I believe that could help, and help any business, honestly. We'll have this deployed not only at the front door for that, but we'll have it deployed at the back door and the side entrance and different things, so that when our technicians come in, if they got their arms full, they'll be able just to look and the door will unlock, and they don't have to set the products down in the boxes, and they can just go ahead and grab the door and walk on in, and so forth and so on. This, to me, could be real beneficial. And if you think about it, in hospitals and nursing homes, for example, you take like drugs have been on the news for a long time, all the opioid crisis and so forth. Well, in hospitals, nursing homes, and like, they'll have just a few people that are allowed in those type of drug closets. Well, this application could do that, where you don't have to worry about if they lost their badge or what's the code on the door. The person that's allowed to go in there, and you can use the badge picture put into the system, and it would allow and says, okay, I know it's you, I'm going to let you in. The accuracy of this system is just remarkable. In a bank, for example, let's say that you've got a situation the reverse. Maybe the bank is open, the front door is open, the foyer door is unlocked, obviously. But let's say that there's an APB, an all points bulletin out, that this person's on the loose. The bank could put that picture into their system, and yes, you could have cameras that would be set up far before they get to that door, that if it recognizes this person, it could lock the door in the foyer. It could actually lock them in the foyer if you wanted to do that, but it could lock the door so it wouldn't let them in, and set off an alert to people there to call 911. So there's all sorts of really, really, really neat things.
Facial recognition continues to get a lot of attention in the media. NEC is a recognized leader, and I'm excited to see how we continue to enhance the product and integrate it into our processes and systems. So,
well, that application I just said is just one: door unlock and lock.
Mm-hmm.
Let me mention one more, and then we'll get off that and move to whatever else you like. Let's say in a setting, whether it could be hospital, it could be a veterinarian's office, it could be anywhere that there's a registration area. If these are patients, guests, maybe in a hotel that recurs or whatever, if their picture is in the database, it could tie to their CRM and pop up on the screen, and the person that might not have ever met this person could see it, pulls up their record and says, well, good morning, Mr. Jones, we're glad to have you, and they'll know who it is. I mean, immediately. Very, very beneficial. There's a lot of good uses for this, and there's so many other applications. We could take 4 hours to talk about the applications this thing can do, because it's just phenomenal.
Right. What about any other products, Gary, in 2020? Anything new that?
We got some neat things. You mentioned the nurse call stuff. That's always evolving, and that doesn't apply to that many customers, obviously, but low voltage lighting.
Low voltage lighting.
Low voltage lighting is really intriguing to me. We're cutting our teeth on that. We're wrapping up 2 rooms. We're going to do a 3rd room install here. It's really slick. Basically, the same brightness of lights that you would have in a commercial room. Instead of fluorescents, they're LEDs, like a lot of businesses are moving to LED anyway. But these are LED lights. Lay-in ceiling tile panels. You can have the circular recessed lighting. But from that, you can change the colors. They go into apps. You got controls on the walls, look kind of like light switches, but you can, of course, dim them and make them bright. And as I said, change colors and the tone and the hues and everything. But you can also put an app on your phone for all that. So let's say that you want to have a meeting, and let's say that you like the room a certain way, Chuck, that this is the way Chuck wants it done. You can basically touch a button and say, this is now set up the way Chuck likes it. All right. If Steve comes in 2 hours later, he can have it a different way. You don't have to go play with all the settings again. It's all that locked in. Now, in the future, I'm not going to say we're going to do it, but we're very likely to do this, tie it into our facial recognition to where you walk in the room and it knows it's time for you to have your meeting. It recognizes you and it says, oh, Chuck, I'll go ahead and turn on the lights the way you want them. Yeah, isn't that though?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So all these technologies can tie together.
Mm-hmm.
Synchronized clocks is another thing.
I've heard some talking about synchronized clocks. It's an interesting idea.
You know what? We didn't get into that until we've been very blessed to do a whole lot of work for a company that does surgical centers. And they have us go into all different states for them to basically anything communicating that they can do with us, because they like working with us. We like working with them. So it's not just phone systems and overhead paging and the nurse call stuff. They said something about synchronized clocks. They had a need for that, and it's got to be precise. So sure enough, we found the vendors for that. We started down that path, and that has been a very good opportunity as well. We don't know exactly right now where all it's going to take us, but that looks pretty good.
I can see where that would be beneficial to a surgery center and also school systems.
School systems, your police departments, fire departments, maybe ambulance services, anywhere that accurate time is critical. They're all going to be synchronized together.
Okay. Well, Gary, it's exciting to see what 2020 is going to bring for Hiscall. Thank you for your vision. Thank you for everything that you do for us here. Thank you for supporting and promoting the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you, Chuck. I've told you before, I think you're doing a fantastic job with these podcasts, and I hope that our listeners find them of value too, and they'll send you messages about what, hopefully, if there's a comment or question or topic that they would like to hear, I'm sure that you'd be glad to put it out there.
Very good, Gary. Thank you for saying that. I do want to thank you, the listener, for downloading and listening to the podcast. And as Gary said, I would love to read your comments. You know, we all face challenges in our day. Sometimes they can be discouraging or create doubts. Sometimes they can be downright scary. As we leave the podcast today, I hope your vision is clear. And remember, don't be afraid, only believe.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to the Hiscall Technology Podcast. Subscribe to this podcast so you can stay up to date with today's business communication trends. To learn more about Hiscall solutions for your business needs or to listen to previous podcasts, visit us at our website, hiscall.com.